This week's video is about how a case of the double empathy problem has essentially really sorted out my autistic imposter syndrome. So firstly, what is the double empathy problem? The double empathy problem is essentially when two people have entirely different fundamental views of the world around them, i.e. an autistic person and an allistic person, and allistic basically means non-autistic. So they have real differences when it comes to communicating and differences when it comes to empathizing with one another, hence the double empathy problem. Damien Milton first coined the term the double empathy problem in 2012 in this study, and it's really a critique on the theory of minds or the theory of mind deficits, which describes individuals such as autistic people as having difficulties with understanding others' intentions or behaviours, along with social reciprocity. And this study on autistic peer-to-peer information transfer is really interesting as it demonstrates the double empathy theory in practice. And it's all about diffusion chains, or as it's more commonly known, a game of telephone. So 2 groups of 8 people played the game, one line of autistic people and another of allistic or non-autistic people. And the 2 groups performed pretty similarly. The groups were then mixed and the results were significantly worse. So essentially, these results challenge the autism diagnostic criterion that autistic people lack communication skills and suggests rather that we're more able to communicate well with somebody of the same neurotype. So I thought it was really interesting to see the results of this study to further demonstrate actually how well we all communicate with each other within the autistic community. So why am I talking about the double empathy problem today? And furthermore, how has it helped my imposter syndrome? Well, firstly, for those that are new to my channel, my name's Lizzie and I was diagnosed as autistic early last year at the age of 49, and like many people who are late diagnosed, I've had a real issue with imposter syndrome, and we're just left wondering whether our diagnosis is correct. And yeah, there's just so much kind of processing to do, and in many ways it seems kind of unbelievable, but you know, it just takes time and effort and a lot of self-reflection to try and deal with this. And I have actually done a separate video on the 4 ways that I was trying to beat imposter syndrome that I'll leave linked down below. But there's something that's happened fairly recently that has, yeah, just really sorted it out for me, I have to say. A few weeks ago, YouTube showed me a video just on my homepage, and I'm not going to tell you what the video is called, and I'm not going to link to it, and I don't want you even to search for this video, and yeah, for reasons that will come apparent really. So yeah, please don't search for this video. But the video featured a neurotypical woman who was, or still is, I don't know, in a relationship with a autistic man with lower support needs. And firstly, I should say that I think the woman in this video is trying to come from a good place, really. I think certainly that's the first thing to say. And I think she's sharing her experiences in order maybe to connect with other people, neurotypical people who are in relationships with autistic people. And yeah, she's just discussing essentially her relationship, and she's in a position where she's desperate to understand her partner, and she's also desperate to be understood by him. So I think it's probably easier if I give them names. So I'm going to call her maybe Sam, and I'm going to call her partner Lee. So the video starts basically by Sam saying that there are some real fundamental differences in how they both convey their kind of love language styles, really. And that's all about the double empathy problem, really, isn't it? When you've got two entirely different mindsets, and it really does demonstrate the kind of disconnect between the two, really. Sam also describes her frustration at almost the differences they have when it comes to spending time together, and how she almost feels like there's a lack of intimacy. And it's basically in the form of when Sam feels that when her and Lee spend time together, she would be really happy cuddling up on the sofa and watching TV or a movie together. But Lee, being autistic, is really driven by his special interests, which many of us can relate with. And he'll happily sit on the computer and be researching and learning about his special interests. But because Lee is in the same room as Sam, he feels like that there is a connection there, in that they're both sharing the same space. And although they're not wholly concentrating on the same thing together, nor are they perhaps physically touching, that there's a real difference there in needs and expectation, really. I think Sam just couldn't understand the need to be productive that Lee has. He has to feel kind of fulfilled. He has to feel like he's done something of value every day. And when he's not able to do that, he feels depressed, really. He feels like there's a sense of guilt and, all of that jazz, really, that's I'm sure many of us will relate to, and I certainly can. And this video gave me such validation, because I could wholeheartedly relate to the person that Sam, was describing in Lee. And I felt in many ways that she could have been talking about me. And I found it just fascinating. For as long as I can remember, I've felt this kind of need and desire to be productive, to be learning or executing something about one of my special interests, and the main one being arts and illustration. And whenever there's been time that I just cannot devote to special interests, it's been really, really difficult. And it's just like my whole kind of being is being kind of stymied in some way. It's really difficult to describe, I think. But gosh, the way she was describing this whole scenario just rung true so much for me, and my whole experience of being autistic. I feel really distressed when I'm not able to make art or do creative work. I'm having a hiatus from my clay work at the moment through my MCAS. I'm having reactions to clay at the moment, but I'm still kind of fulfilling this creative desire by making videos on this channel. So I've had to kind of switch my my execution or my projects a little, but I still feel creative, and it's so hugely important to me. And yeah, when I'm not able to do it, I just feel awful. And like Lee is being described, I just get really obsessed by special interests. And in fact, when I went back to art college in my mid-30s, my tutor was astounded at the amount of work that I was doing for each project, because in hindsight it was probably quite a ridiculous amount when it came to the project criteria. And for me, it just absolutely fueled a desire in me to really go a bit overboard, really, in researching topics. I just found it fascinating. And yeah, my limits kind of knew no bounds at that time really, and well, yeah, still do in many senses. But yeah, I just had a overwhelming need to research and learn about whatever thing I was doing, and I think this is a really common experience for autistic people. And also Sam's description of how they spend their evenings together, so that Lee is happily kind of busying himself away with his special interests, while Sam is sharing the same space, but she feels very alone. It just really made me think of my evenings with my partner, Ian, and yeah, we are basically always in the same room in the evening, but we're both kind of invested in two separate things entirely for most evenings. I'll invariably be trying to watch something on TV, so I'll hide my iPad away because I find it really distracting. I'm very monotropic, so I need to do one thing at a time. Whereas Ian will be basically three screening over on the other side of the room, and he'll be watching YouTube videos on his iPads, he'll be scrolling on his phone, and he'll also have an eye on what I'm watching on TV because I basically watch everything with subtitles. And if I happen to lose the thread of a plot line or whatever, quite often he'll be able to tell me what's going on. And in case you're wondering, we do highly suspect that Ian has ADHD, but his attention is kind of all over the place, really, whereas I have to really focus in on one thing. But maybe there'll be one evening in the week where we're both invested in watching the same film, so we're both sat in the same room and we're both sharing the same space and we can communicate with each other whenever we like. So that in itself feels intimate to me. And in all honesty, I could maybe see how a neurotypical person with little to no understanding of autism could maybe describe me as emotionally unavailable, because I do need to get lost in my special interests. And I'm just so thankful that I'm in a relationship with another neurodivergent person who just really understands how I need to spend my time. So it was so interesting to hear Sam talk about this, because I just felt like she could have been talking about me, and it really helps me understand myself in a way that I've not yet found elsewhere, or certainly not to the same degree anyway. I think because these days I'm home based through chronic illness, I'm not in a position where I see people very often, so I'm not able to compare myself, if you like, to neurotypical people very often at all. It will just mainly be through kind of doctor's appointments or hospital appointments, etc. But I'm just not often given that opportunity to really think about how different I am to other people, or to really think about that double empathy problem. So this video has been one of the more useful ways for me to finally accept that I'm autistic, which is pretty much because I'm autistic. Sam does go on to discuss some other stuff in the video which I could also really relate to, but I just wanted to pick on the double empathy theme today, really just to give this video a central theme really. So yeah, it was just super interesting for me. And as I said earlier, please, please, please don't go and search for this video for a few reasons really. Sam firstly is using some quite clunky language, and that may well be uncomfortable viewing. And also the comments section, as expected, is an absolute bin fire. So please, don't go and find this video. And if I do see any guesses in comments, they'll just be removed anyway, because that isn't the intention of this video. My motivation for making this video is really to demonstrate the different ways that we can finally take on board that we are autistic. And as for me, it may well come in a really unexpected way. So yeah, that's the sole reason for this video, really. If, like me, you've also been struggling with imposter syndrome, but there's been something that's kind of happened or occurred, and it's finally allowed you to fully take on board that you are autistic, I would love to hear down below in comments. And finally, just a little bit of housekeeping on my channel, or basically some updates on my channel. And a huge thank you to everybody who watched and took part in my live streams through the Christmas holidays. Gosh, they were really nerve-wracking, I have to say. And I wasn't sure that I'd even be able to live stream, but it's something that's kind of really interested me over recent months, so it was really nice to take the plunge. So thank you to those of you that took part. I am planning to do more live streams, probably one a month, maybe on the first Sunday of each month. And because I've got dry eye syndrome, they have to be during daylight hours, unfortunately. So they are at the moment round about kind of 2 o'clock in the afternoon UK time, but as we move forward into spring and summer, I will make them later in the day, so that those of you outside of Europe can take part too, because I'd love to hear from you. And incidentally, any live streams or old live streams, or once they're finished, will only be available to view over at my new Ko-fi page, and I'll link that down below. And it's really to do with the YouTube algorithm, because it's just so hard to figure out, and I think it's just easier just to make them unlisted and only available to view over there, really. And any live streams that are happening in the moment will still be on YouTube, so there's no difference there. It's just old live streams. You basically need to go over to Ko-fi to view them, so I hope that makes sense. And while I think about it, I'm just going to give a shout out to another creator, and it's Neil over at Autistic Not Alien. And Neil has also recently started doing some live streams, and he's really good at them. So if you are into live streams, by all means go and take a look. I'll leave his channel linked below. And I think his next live stream is scheduled for the end of January, but he's also got some really great videos on his channel as well. So yeah, that's going to be it for today. Thank you ever so much for watching. Give it a like if you got this far, and I'll see you again soon.